picked some of the more somber side of Terry Barber's repertoire to welcome him into Talking Culture. That's Flow My Tears. And I imagine Terry has a deep contemplative side, but he also has a vibrant, joyous side as well. And Sam, I'll just kick it over to you.
Yeah, you hate to come in and talk over some beautiful music like that, but unfortunately, if we wanted to do a musical show, we probably could, but not on this station. In any case, the music of Andrew Lloyd Webber is coming to the Fox Theater this Saturday night at 7 p.m., The Best of Broadway, starring international countertenor and Grammy nominee Terry Barber. That was his vocals there on that track coming into this segment. And joining us now on the line, Terry Barber himself. Terry, welcome into Talking Culture, and thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Sam and Kevin. How are you?
We are doing great, doing even better now that you're here on the show. You can get your tickets to the show at foxtucson.com. At this event, you'll enjoy an evening filled with music of the most popular composer in Broadway history, Andrew Lloyd Webber, and it will be starring the international countertenor opera star, Mr. Terry Barber. Terry, I have a question for you. How do you curate all of Andrew Lloyd Webber's greats and select only a handful of music to perform in concert? What is that process like? Is there a theme that you're going for when you're putting this together?
For sure. I think, the first thing that occurred to me was to kind of go through the songs that people would come to the show expecting to hear their favorites and make sure to include those. Obviously, Phantom of the Opera is the longest running show on Broadway, and so there's a good set from that show for sure. And then, to kind of go through some of the other shows that he's had that have been such big hits, like Evita and Jesus Christ Superstar, Cats, and pick out and make sure that songs like Memory, obviously you can't do a show of Andrew Lloyd Webber and not include some songs that have even transcended musical theater, if you will. You get like popular artists or, artists you wouldn't expect covering songs like that.
That is pretty interesting. And one of the special additions to the show this Saturday is you'll be performing You'll Be Back from the sold-out Broadway show Hamilton, which won 11 Tony Awards, famous probably for more than anything, the difficulty in getting a ticket to this show on Broadway. Have you had the pleasure, Terry, of seeing Hamilton live?
I actually haven't.
Okay.
But I am, a big fan of the show, and I've done my research, if you will, and there's one part that in particular I feel compelled to. The first time I heard it, the vocal that Jonathan Groff does for the original recording is somewhat like Freddie Mercury or Tim Curry, or, it's got kind of that element of it could be, again, outside of the realm even of musical theater. And the show, of course, is famous for being the first historical rap musical. And I wondered, I never thought I would say those words together in my life, historical rap musical. It's not the kind of thing that you expect. But when you listen to the show, you can hear how clever the words are and how, why it's breaking all the records that it's making financially.
We're talking to Terry Barber, who's going to be in town this weekend at the Fox Theater. You can go to foxtucson.com or call 547-3040. Terry, I'm curious, I'm sure you've heard of the 10 Tenors.
Yes, of course.
So I saw them at the Fox myself about a month ago, and one of them, you spoke of Freddie Mercury, the late lead singer of Queen, and that was probably the highlight of the show, this guy belting. And I'm not sure if he was, as we say, a countertenor, but are you going to be doing any Freddie Mercury this Saturday? Get the folks excited.
Well, I'll certainly be singing in that range. And the interesting thing about countertenor, you mentioned it earlier in the show, is that it's the rarest voice type. It's not a word that most people are used to hearing. A countertenor is a man who sings comfortably in the range above tenor, where we normally hear women. It could be in the contralto, mezzo-soprano, or even soprano range. And in the context of popular music, or even sometimes musical theater, it's not that strange to our ear, but in the context of classical music, it is really odd. So I'll give you an example. My grandparents listened to Roy Orbison, and my parents listened to the Bee Gees, and I listened to Michael Jackson and Prince growing up, and kids are listening to Sam Smith. And even Adam Levine and Charlie Puth use those upper parts of their voice in the context of pop music, and people don't really think too much of it. when you hear men singing in a classical way in that range, it is odd to us, and there is a historical reason why it's important to have men who can do that, and that is that before the classical period, men and women did not often share the stage because the church said that that was not all right. And so there were men who sang in what I would call an uncomfortably unnatural way, or were maimed and disfigured in order to carry out sing those roles, be the stars of Handel opera. And now we have men who can naturally sing in a comfortably high range and cover those parts. So, yes, countertenor, it's fun. I can sing the music of Queen. I love to. This is not that tour, but it's definitely got, I'll definitely be using those colors and that range in some of the pieces.
You're making me jealous here, Terry. I did a little musical theater, and I was a baritone, and if I could get a middle E, I was lucky, and that really, really limited my range. Is there any tips you could give for a guy like me to maybe add an octave or two on top of what I've already got?
Well, so the head voice, so all men have kind of two voices, and all women actually have really two voices too, but it's more distinct in men, right? So when your voice changes, it's kind of like a continent rips apart, and now you've got these two islands. And the whole idea with bel canto technique or classical technique is to try to make a bridge from one island to the other. So I would say work on your upper voice. Get up in the morning and use your Mickey Mouse voice. Pretend up there, and just exercise. Yeah, exactly. Exercise that part of your voice. Do your high Amadeus Mozart giggle. Whatever you can to kind of stretch that part of your voice a little bit, and in a comfortable way. Obviously don't break anything, don't strain.
Okay, thanks.
We are talking to Terry Barber, the front man for the music of Andrew Lloyd Webber, which is they'll be performing the Best of Broadway, starring Terry Barber himself, and it'll be at the Fox Theater, the Fox Tucson Theater, this Saturday night at 7 p.m. You can get your tickets at foxtucson.com. This is a must-see event, and you won't want to miss it. Terry, do you have a few minutes to stick around into the next segment?
Sure.
All right, great. We've got a lot more to get to with Terry, including you won't believe how many different languages this man
that was
has
what I was going to
performed
tease. Okay, and
sung in. We're going to go to a break. We got news at the bottom of the hour, and then we'll be right back with Terry Barber talking about his languages. Here's some Terry Barber. We'll be right back.
The time I knew what happiness was, let the memory live again. Every street lamp seems to beat a fatalistic warning. Someone mutters and the street lamp gutters, and soon it will be morning. Softly, dirty music shall caress you. Feel it, hear it, secretly possess you.
You hate to have to come in over music.
Why
like
do we
this.
have to? Why don't we just let it play
Let's
it
just
out?
let it breathe a little bit.
Hey, we are going to give away a pair of tickets at the end of this interview to the show this weekend, 7 o'clock at the Fox Theater. If you like anything about musical theater or music in general, you're going to have a great time. So stay with us, and we're going to give those away here in a minute. But we still have Terry Barber on the line.
Yes, and those tickets will be to the Terry Barber performance this coming Saturday evening at the Fox Tucson Theater. The music of Andrew Lloyd Webber, the Best of Broadway, starring international countertenor and Grammy nominee Terry Barber himself. You can get tickets if you're not lucky enough to win them at the end of this interview here on the show. You can get your own tickets at foxtucson.com, foxtucson.com. And joining us still on the line is Mr. Terry Barber himself. And Terry, you are already in Tucson. Is that correct?
It's true, yes. I'm here getting ready for the show. I decided that probably since people didn't want to hear me sing Don't Cry for Me, Argentina, I would give a couple of opportunities to some local up-and-coming talent that are really exceptional. There's a great musical theater program here, of course, at the college, or at the university. And so I've, at the recommendation of the head of the department, I've auditioned some people and chosen just a couple of young artists to join me.
That would be wonderful. If Sebastian Alameda's on that list, I would put a plug in for him. He's a friend of mine that goes down there to that school right now. But, Terry, is this your first time in Tucson? Where have you been?
Actually, and I've been to Phoenix a few times, and I was just performing at the International Film Festival in Sedona a couple of weeks ago. But, yeah, it's my first time to Tucson, and I love it.
Okay, great. That was what I was going to ask you. How's it been for you? How's the city treating you?
Well, I love the size of it. It's accessible, and you also have great options for food and culture. So, and it's just so picturesque. I love the Southwest, so it's great being here.
So, speaking of culture, Kevin, do you have a comment or a question?
No, go ahead.
So, speaking of culture, I think one thing that diversifies a culture is the variety of languages spoken and how that influences how people communicate. And, Terry, you have performed and sung in 14 different languages. And so I'm curious, which of the languages that you've sung in or that you've practiced music in do you find the most natural for singing?
It's interesting. Of course, we learn Italian for classical singing first. And that's because of the purity of the vowels and kind of the shapes that you want to make for great singing and the line that you have. My process for singing in these different languages is similar no matter what language I'm singing in. So, even though you learn German, Italian, French, English, Latin as kind of like the core for Western culture, I've had opportunities to sing in many more languages, as you mentioned. My first opportunities outside of that box were really, at a high level, were really when I was on tour with Chanticleer, the multiple Grammy-winning group that's based out in California. And so I was singing soprano for them. Most of my countertenor friends really use that upper part of their voice almost exclusively in their performances. In my shows, I really like to use my entire range, and so you'll hear works on at this Fox for baritone, some for tenor, and some up through into the soprano range. So a couple of seasons ago, I'll give you an example. I was singing at the Library of Congress for the Russian American Cultural Association, and almost everyone in the room were Russian speakers first. Some of them didn't speak English. So it was a particularly stressful event for me, where I was selected to honor Mikhail Lermontov, who's kind of like their Poe, or an incredible poet who a lot of his work had been set to songs and even opera. And so, in my mind's eye, I was thinking all these Russians who are sitting there listening to me are thinking, why is this American up here singing? Why we have a lot of great Russian singers. And so I think their kind of take on it was this poet is so great that he is being covered by artists of from every culture. And so my process is very similar. I think the furthest you get from geographically where you are, kind of the harder it is. With Russian, there are words that start with like 4 or 5 consonants before you get to a vowel, and Y is a vowel. So like vzglianyet or whatever, it's very hard for us to even like phonate and make those sounds, for Americans, I think. But to work with people who are fluent speakers, to have a couple of different translations, to know exactly what word you're saying in the moment, but also like the poetic translation or the overall arcing meaning, but also the individual meaning, so that when you're holding the word, you're holding a note and the word is hate, you're not smiling, unless you're supposed to be disturbed or something. But yeah, my process is similar whether I'm singing in Portuguese or Korean or English.
Terry, we are talking to Terry Barber. He's on the phone with us right now. He'll be performing at the Fox Tucson Theater this Saturday at 7 p.m. Get your tickets at foxtucson.com. And, Terry, you've performed for the Metropolitan Opera at Carnegie Hall and at Moscow's Svetlanov Hall. You've performed at some pretty incredible venues around the world. If you had to pick a venue that you would say was, one of your most memorable venues to perform in, whether it was the way it made you sound or the acoustics within the building or just the aura of the venue itself, what would you say is your most memorable venue that you've performed?
Wow, what a great question. And first of all, let me just congratulate you on pronouncing Stutland Hall correctly, because I've heard a lot of people really butcher that. I have to say, I love smaller, intimate venues sometimes when they're really acoustically beautiful. There's the Sheldon Concert Hall in St. Louis, where I live now. People can hear my program that's in 10 languages right now on YouTube. There's a video that has kind of snippets of me singing in different languages that I did at the Sheldon last month. That's kind of like a mini Carnegie Hall, if you will. I mean, some of those big venues that are known for great acoustics, like Carnegie Hall, are certainly wonderful. Memorable to me is my New York City opera debut, where I came out in a loincloth, and my grandmother was sitting in one of the first rows and said, "Oh, I don't think I've seen his butt in 20 years." So that certainly was memorable. But yeah, you kind of remember different things for different reasons. But certainly when you walk into an acoustic, the Kennedy Center, when I was with Chanticleer, we sang there. When you walk in and make a sound and you hear it back, the space is so different. And, I just like the variety of where I get to go and the different sizes, but I'm really anxious about the Fox because I've heard great things, and there are obviously great artists on the roster there, on their event season. So it's great to be here in Tucson and at the Fox.
I think the Fox Theater, more than anything, what it does here in Tucson is it provides a venue that's of a good size, so you get a good size audience, but at the same time manages to maintain an intimate feel. Mm-hmm. And not to mention the history of it and all the various, as you mentioned, artists that have performed there. There's a lot of history at the Fox Tucson Theater. Well, the Los Angeles Times has called the performance a performance of great vitality and nerve. Verve. Yep. It has a lot of nerve, too. And David Novick of Universal Records called it beautiful and stunning work. Terry's delivery is second to none. You don't want to miss this show. The Fox Tucson Theater, 7 p.m. Saturday night. Kevin?
Terry, before you get out of here, I got to know, what is your actual range? You came in singing the Phantom. How many octaves can you comfortably sing in?
Yeah, a little more than 4, and I'll use it all in my show. So you can imagine, like, most people have like 1 or 2 octaves, kind of as average. And then more than that is a little bit of a stretch for some people. And so you'll hear me singing like sometimes melodies in different languages. One of my tours, I actually do a duet with myself and use a mask and change octaves so I can play the man and the woman at the same time. It's funny.
Wow. Well, it sounds like it will be the performance that will really inspire a lot of people and be quite impressive. 7 p.m. Saturday night. And Terry, thanks for listening to the show, or for being on the show, and I imagine for listening to some extent. We're looking forward to seeing you Saturday night. And we have got 1 pair of tickets to give away to the event. That'll be 2 tickets.
790-2040. Call now. 790-2040. Call, claim your pair. Caller number 2. Let's go to caller number 2 right now.
Caller number 2. Terry, when we come back, James Dashner will be on the line to talk about his book that took the nation by storm, the Maze Runner series. They made it into a movie that your kids have probably seen. Maybe even you've seen it yourself. My wife and I loved it, by the way. We're talking to him when we come back from the break. Here's a little Terry Barber to play you into the next segment.
Enjoy an evening filled with the music of the most popular composer in Broadway history, Andrew Lloyd Webber. Terry Barber, international countertenor and opera star, performs live Saturday, March 11th at Fox Tucson Theater. Standing ovations will punctuate the evening with songs from Phantom of the Opera, Jesus Christ Superstar, Cats, Evita, even from the sold-out Broadway show, Hamilton. Terry Barber performs the music of Andrew Lloyd Webber on March 11th. Tickets at foxtucson.com.